off Tiff a little bit. All right. Hi, everybody. It's Tiffany Tuota coming to you live from Los Angeles. And today, well, in about 10 minutes, we're going to start a live with two incredible individuals that we're going to talk about the film El Tizal. And let me tell you guys, you do not want to miss this conversation. And we are going to go through the journey of their tour. We are honored to be a part of their final tour conversation. So come on down and give us a few minutes. We want to make sure people have time to join us. In the meantime, let's see, where is everyone coming in from? I see a few names. Hello, Faris, Noor. I don't know where you guys are in the world. Let us see. And then let's see. As you guys are joining, start to think about if there's anybody in this community. Hi, Abu Baker, Sabah al Khair or Sabah al Noor, Sabah al Ful, wherever you guys are. Good morning. Very early for us. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So today's topic is going to be about Arab mental health. We're going to talk about creative burnout. We're also going to talk about identity immigration. And guess what? Emotional honesty. And what does that mean? So are you guys ready to rock and roll? Because I'm ready. I've been waiting for these guys all year. So excited. All right. Mira, how's everything looking?
Looks great. I just want to give you one tip to please make sure during the live you can see how you can see yourself in like in a smaller picture at the bottom. Okay, you can see if you click on it, you can see add to stage or remove. So just make sure that you're always added to stage, and it might remove you automatically. Sometimes it does that. Just make sure you're back on because we need to see you. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you need anything, I'm on the back end. I'm here. Okay.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness for Mira, everybody. My amazing assistant who keeps Community for International Arab going. He's on the back end as we get started. And it may be good for those that are joining to have questions prepared around perhaps what you may have been struggling with around mental health. How has your identity or immigration experience impacted you? If you are in the creative arts within our cultural context, what does that mean to you? And have you been given the support that you feel like you need to keep going in this field? All right. And then I'm going to introduce Sabine and Jonathan. Actually, are you guys there? Can you guys... Everyone's here?
I think so.
Hey, all right, you guys. I want to introduce Jonathan Akawi, Sabine Khawashi. Sabine is a director and writer, and Jonathan is an actor, writer, producer. And they are as I say, the masterminds behind El Tizal. So I'll have you guys introduce yourselves and further, and then maybe talk about the film, and then we can go from there.
Awesome. I guess I'll kick it off. So yeah, I'm Sabine Khawaji. I'm a Lebanese writer director, and I started this project essentially 5 years ago, and it was about just sparking more conversations about mental health in our community. I've been in the film industry for 10 years. I haven't seen much film or stories like this being said at all, and at least making our people, like humanizing our people. And then I was very fortunate to meet Jonathan, and he saw the vision, and it was very hard for us to make this film. We didn't get any funding. Not a lot of people believed in it, and Jonathan did. And here we are years later, and it's toured and screened at bigger places. And Jonathan, you can just lead on there.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Akawi. I am actually the producer of El Tizal, but I am an actor, writer, producer. I didn't act in it, but I didn't write it. That was all Sabine's writing and directing. I decided to come on this project many years ago when Sabine first pitched it to me. What, like you said, 5 years ago, after the Beirut explosion happened in August 2020.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Hey, I have an idea for a story, you know, about like siblings coming together where their parents happened to be back home in Beirut when the explosion happened. What do you think for like a script concept?" And I go, "That's incredible. There's so many like psychological thrilling themes that you can explore in that, but also a family dynamic that we don't tend to see much in our stories. Write that." And so she began to develop it over the next couple of years until we met in LA for the first time physically in 2022 at the Grove, where, funny enough, that's the first time we met Tiffany physically in person there too. So like full circle moment. And she was updating me on the project, and then she began to, you know, as she was saying, looking for funding, which she didn't get. And then I think 2023, we both were like, screw it, let's just do it ourselves. Like, this is an important and timely story. And we can't let, you know, the powers that be tell us we can't make it. And so what began was a 2-year journey where we're ending now after a 1-year long festival run of this wonderful film called A Lit to Solve.
Oh, well, I love the film so much. But let's see. So thank you guys for the introductions. I wanted to see, where is everyone coming in from? Because we still have a few more minutes. Just a couple more minutes. Let's see. I'm going to start calling. Let's see. We've got Khalaf joining. We've got Tala, UAE, originally from Egypt. Hey, Jay. Good to see you. UAE's in the house. Let's see. So for those of you that are new to Community for International Arab, my name is Tiffany Totah. I'm a marriage and family therapist, Palestinian American. And I'm joined by Sabine, who is a Canadian Lebanese, right? Lebanese Canadian. Is that how we roll? And then with Jonathan, you're Palestini Americani, right?
Yes.
Or,
yeah. For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. Okay. I knew that. All right. So let's see. So we've got Walid from Palma. We've got Dina from Arizona. US is in the house. All right. We've got Moja from Egypt. Pearl from Saudi. I am loving where everyone is coming in from. España, Leonor. ¿Sí?
Hola.
Hola, sí, puedo hablar en español.
Sí.
All right. Let's see. So today's topic, just for those of you that are hopping on new, we are going to be talking about Arab mental health, creative burnout, identity, immigration, and emotional honesty. And I really was hoping any creatives that are joining, any creatives that are on the live, and I define the arts pretty broadly. How would you guys define the arts? People in the field. Is it writers, directors, producers, film?
To me, it's everyone that is part of the film or TV making process. Because some people tend to call artists like like you said, the directors, writers, actors, producers. But I'm like, even down to like the makeup artists, the costume designers, the set designers, prop house, you know, all that stuff. Everyone is integral to, you know, the filmmaking process. So anyone that just loves making movies and TV. Or anyone that loves to tell stories, I should say. There we go.
Storytellers, yeah.
I love that, Jonathan. Everyone that loves to tell stories. It's an incredible back end for those of you that have ever been on a film set or television. The amount of things that need to happen to actually produce. I think we take for granted that, we're just watching something, but it is involved. Video editing, the editor, the sound. What are those machines? You know, there's the things, the camera people with the crane.
Yes. The
Rig,
camera ops.
Yeah.
It's incredible. All right, let's see. Any artists on here? Let's see. Any creatives? Well, looks like everyone's going to be quiet. So okay, it's 9:00. We are going to get started. All right. Sabine, I wonder if we could start with you around telling us a little bit about El Etisal and what the film is about. And maybe we can explore the conversation. We'll
Yep.
expand it from there.
For sure. So El Etisal, the film, it was initially sparked after the Beirut explosion that happened in 2020. I was in Vancouver at the time, and we had family in Beirut, extended cousins, friends, and we were sort of awaiting to hear news of what had happened. It was a shock. Everyone was, it was the first time I was old enough to understand what the feeling is when a tragedy happens in your homeland and you can't do anything. Because anytime that happened prior, I was way too young, and my parents would sort of shield us. They wouldn't tell us like the full extent of what was happening. And so I just saw the impact that it had on our community abroad. And I think that's sometimes a perspective we don't see or hear about as much in film or, in general. And I saw the toll that it took on everyone's mental health. And mental health is not a term that we hear often around us. And I'd been attending therapy for like 5 years at that point. And I just saw the way things were being handled. And it was a lot. Like it was emotionally just, there was a lot going on and different reactions. And so from there, I started writing the script about the concept of three siblings that are abroad from their homeland when an explosion happens, and their parents are in Beirut and they're awaiting a call about their survival status, which is something that a lot of people went through at the time and unfortunately continue to go through. And, so that's what sparked it. I started writing it, and I wanted to make it my mission to talk about Arab mental health globally, which is why we really pushed for this film to be something outside of Canada and not just like a local, film project. So that's sort of what sparked it. And then unfortunately, last year, my dad actually was stuck in the south of Lebanon when everything happened. So I had to relive my own movie in a weird way. And that had an impact on mental health, but putting the conversations forward, because I think it's common to just like brush it off. Like, we're strong, khalas, we'll move on. And it's not always the healthiest thing to do, if that answers.
Oh, it sure does. The emotional suppression.
Yeah.
Khalas, move on, ma'alash. We hear that a lot. And these situations are so intense, yet there's a minimization of the intensity. And what I love about the film is that it really brings out how each person in the family can be impacted, which your film was the first time I, as a mental health practitioner from our communities, it was like a breath of fresh air. I could not believe somebody wrote a film about something I truly advocate, and the way you captured it was just brilliant to me. It was so well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan, any thoughts about just the emotional suppression? Is that also something you experience or see within your community? Because I know, Palestinian.
Yes, a lot of it actually. Like growing up, any bouts of like anxiety or just even panic attacks, I would say, and it's like trying to express that to not necessarily just my parents, but like the elders in the community. I'm like, this is what's going on with me. I don't know how to cope with it. I don't know how to deal with it. And it's always like you were saying, the khalas, kullu birasak, it's all just in your head. Like, just move on. Like, and it's like, maybe that's what worked for the older generations back home, because there wasn't much dialogue or conversation or even the knowledge of mental health to what we have now in the 21st century. But it's a lot of that emotional suppression that I feel like is not good at a younger stage. I mean, you're the expert, so you would know much better, but I feel like now as an adult, I'm experiencing a lot of that more, and it's all kind of blowing up in my face because I didn't have the tools when I was younger to deal with it and know how to talk about it. And now as an adult, going back and maybe having the same conversation with some of the elders, it's the same thing. Khalas, malish, move on, and it's like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, I need to address the core root problem and be able to overcome that so that I could, live more comfortably and better.
at a minimum in the least amount of suffering, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of the reason why I started Community for International Arab. And as moving into the elder generation, older generation, is say, you know, we need to do better by the younger generation. We need to have these conversations. And I say this all the time, it's the younger generation that is driving these conversations. I often wonder when we think about film in around our Arab communities, what are the type of, like, how are our stories discussed in your experiences?
I find it's usually like there's, I don't want to say a formula, but there's kind of, we're just depicted a certain way. And it depends if it's from the Western lens, you know, or if it's written by Arab. But I think from like the Western lens, we see our country as like war, violence, you know, tragedies, all that. Jonathan, if you want to add on, but, and then that was something we didn't want to do. We didn't show any graphic footage. There's nothing you see of, you know, people passing or the Beirut explosion or anything. Because we really want to focus on humanizing us as individuals, our experiences, and you know, showing the impact versus just that, like, we're humans too. Because one of the lines in the film, it's really about like sometimes we're just viewed as headlines more than we're viewed as people. You know, our stories are always headlines, and it's like we're so much more than that. There's, you know, so that was sort of that's sort of how I see it perceived. But yeah, Jonathan, if you want to add.
No, I agree with what you said. We tend to see a lot of films that from our regions that kind of talk about, like you said, war, politics, and even not necessarily the exploration of trauma, but we just kind of depict the trauma. We don't necessarily talk about how to overcome it, necessarily talk about how to deal with it. And I think it's because, unfortunately, a lot of our film and TV from the region can't break through Western markets because we're so used to wanting to be like, well, we want that. We want to see the war. We want to see the explosion. We want to see the bloodshed. We want to see, you know, the bad stuff in a way, because that's unfortunately what sells tickets here in the West. And I love the resilience of MENA artists being like, that's not why we're making our stories. We're not trying to, you know, subjugate ourselves to what you want. We want to be able to portray ourselves in how we see ourselves and what we're dealing with. I mean, this year alone, it's been amazing to see 3 female Arab filmmakers having conversation in the international Oscar race because of their films, which, yes, they all deal with trauma in a way, but it's not the trauma within the Western lens of wanting to depict MENA and Arab people. It's trauma from us ourselves wanting to explain this is what we are going through as Palestinians, actually, I think the three films are Palestinian based. So as Palestinians, but you know, wherever you come from the region, to be able to talk about the traumas that you undergo, that you go through, but also explore it in a non-Western lens, which I really appreciate. And that's kind of what Sabine was saying with our film. You know, we wanted to make a big point of not ever depicting the Beirut explosion, not ever showing bloody dead bodies. You know, you hear audio of what's going on for context of the story, but you never see it visually. And it's funny because as we were applying to film grants and talking to other producers about it, that's the thing that they thought was missing from the project is they wanted to see the explosion. They wanted to see the bloodshed. They wanted to see the bad stuff. And we're like, yeah, no, that's not our intention. And that's not our mission. So bye.
I found myself getting emotional, and I guess I'm still emotional because what you guys are, the stories are so much more, and there's so much suffering in the Arab world, so much suffering in the diaspora. I didn't realize I was going to get so emotional, but just leaning into what you were saying around, because I as a mental health practitioner, I see so much suffering. There's no spaces for us to talk about everyone's story, and it's almost like the dehumanization of our people all over the Arab world, you know, and the division. And I often wonder, like, your film, it's showing the vulnerable side of what truly happens and the impact, not just on generations. And these are the things that are so important. And this is the vision that we need to hold on to, is being able to share our stories from that place of vulnerability so that people can see that we're not these, it's almost like an inanimate objects. Like, and I tell Western clinicians, I was like, do you guys understand like the multi layers that people from Middle Eastern countries and North African deal with? Do you guys understand that? And they have no clue.
Mm-mm.
Multi layers of all of it. So anyway, my apologies for getting emotional, but the trauma and how it shows up in our daily lives and in our relationships, that's what your film did. And I have not seen that anywhere in my lifetime to date. And I've been looking, believe me.
I mean, to add to that, the generational trauma, you know, like we were born abroad, you know, and our parents are the ones that went through it on the ground, you know, they experienced it fully. And so that their traumas, it passes on to us, you know, and I think it's about how are we going to deal with it? And are we going to break the cycle so the next generation, you know, doesn't have to, or knows how to deal with those emotions versus being in survival mode constantly and then suppressing, and then it comes out in different ways. So.
Yes. And that's where I think that's the role I feel I play with my social media, is to say, can we just have these conversations? Can we just talk about, it doesn't mean our parents are bad. It doesn't mean that they were wrong. They just didn't know. And they didn't, there was no language. I think that for the young people, for you, nobody, even in my generation, nobody talked about mental health wasn't even on the radar. That was for Majanian.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mental health equals ilijnoon. And so this is very new. And so for the parents, to understand anxiety, panic attacks, depression, they have shut down so much as a result of being in survival mode for so long that's not even a concept that they could even bring up. Now, that goes to, with that said, it does not mean to, with that said, I say that carefully because I know sometimes the way parents can move and family members can move can be very damaging. And so we need to hold space for both. That and how can future generations, how can this generation break those cycles so that future generations won't have to deal with all of the suffering that comes from not talking about things. So, right, the tension between family expectations and personal values.
Yeah. Right.
You guys get that, right?
I was gonna say, I was gonna add on to that. I think there is often, and it doesn't need to be spoken necessarily, but there's sort of a set of expectations that's kind of engraved in us or set for us from day one. And it doesn't have to be verbally said, but it's sort of like, let's say, the way your life should be, who you should potentially end up with, how your career should go. You know, how we're all very community-based, which I love, but, you know, the impact of the community and what people think and all this stuff. And so it's like, there's sort of this invisible base of these are the expectations set for us. And then, you know, we come in and we're like, maybe that's not what we want to do. You know, maybe we want to do it a little differently. And then the impact that has on your mental health when you don't want to necessarily follow the, let's say, which is not bad. It's not to say that what the expectations are, you know, bad at all. But if you don't want to do that, and then you kind of suffer internally with debating between like how you want to live versus what the expectation is of how you live and whether that comes towards career or not. And then I find a lot of things that we feel or go through, we're just always pushing it down, avoiding it. And then, like I said, it comes out in different ways through like arguments, through, you know, depression, panic attacks, all of that stuff, which is something depicted in our film too. You know, it's like not verbally said, hey, I'm struggling, but it comes out through arguments of, you want to live your life this way, that's not right. but I want to love my life this way, but you're not right. And then it's just this conflict versus just sitting and being like, hey, this is what I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like for the two of you to break out of the Mohandas Doctor, what was the last one?
Mahami.
Mahami, right? You guys went completely bananas on the other side. What was, so for anyone that's listening who has a desire within them or a passion within them to pursue something that calls to them, and they're in a family system or in a cultural system that is very narrow when it comes to what is acceptable careers, what would be something you can offer someone who may be thinking about this or in it even?
Yeah. I mean, I'll start. I think it sounds a little cheesy, but you do have to live for yourself at one point. I think there's, like, when it comes to expectations, I said previously, I grew up in a family of doctors, there were a lot of lawyers in our community. Like, everyone sort of had the path that we're told, these are like the key jobs. And personally, I just couldn't do it. Like, I'm a creative, and I tried to do the college route. I did college. I tried to do sociology. I wanted to, take the proper route of what would have been, let's say, expected. I just couldn't do it. And I thought, sometimes you really do have to blur mute the outside noises and really focus on what I want, because life, and it sounds cheesy, but you have to think of yourself in 10 years. Like, I started this when I was 19. And I think at the time I was very emotional because it was like, no one's doing this. This should be a passion. Art should just stay a passion. This isn't the most feminine career choice either. You shouldn't be doing this. It's not stable. And I think had I listened to that back then, I would not be as happy where I am now. And it takes a lot of work. It's, we still have our jobs. We still have 9 to 5. We do this at the same time. But sometimes you need to be the one to open the door, so then other people see that they can do it too. Like, now the community I grew up in, a lot of those parents, their kids, they're like, Sabine, can you help my kid? They're interested in film. Can you do this? We want to, so it's like, you really have to put yourself first and listen to what you want, and kind of understand that there will be criticism, there will be talk, there will be a lot of, what are you doing? What's this doing? How did they drop out of college? You got to really live for yourself, because at the end of the day, it's about your happiness. And it sounds so cheesy, but it's so true. It really is, in my opinion. So it was a difficult path. It wasn't supported from the start. Absolutely not on my end. So,
yeah. What you were saying, Sabine, is just like the most, like you said, it's cheesy, but it's the most important advice of just like, be who you are and be true to yourself in what you want to do. And it definitely is way easier said than done, coming from our backgrounds. Like, for me, I was almost a child actor on Disney Channel, but my Arab father was like, no. But at the time, of course, I didn't understand why. I just thought like, oh, he's just ruining my dreams. He's, crushing it because he has this negative perception of what Hollywood and entertainment is and whatnot. But like, growing up, I went to college. I did do dual degrees. One of them was in theater and acting. The other one was in molecular biology, because I was gonna go the doctor route. But I like to make the joke of, Arab parents give you 3 options, like you were saying earlier, Tiffany: doctor, lawyer, engineer, Dr. Muhandis, or Muhami. And then I chose the 4th unspoken option, which is disappointment, But after graduating with those degrees, I was like, well, now I'm lost. What do I do? Like, I have this experience in the industry of when I was trying to be a child actor. And I was working in corporate, so I wasn't even doing the medical stuff. And I was like, I'm going to go back to school and do a master's in screenwriting, because I love to write stories and I want to be able to develop that skill a lot more. And I remember I was probably like 19 or 20, and I was, going up to my dad and trying to be all brave and stuff. And I go, Baba, like, I don't know, I don't care what you're going to say. I have money saved up. I'm going to, grad school, and I'm going to do filmmaking. And he looked at me and he goes, okay, good for you. And I go, what do you mean, okay, good for you? You're supposed to say no, the whole 20 years of my life, you've, stood against this, and now you're like, that's fine. And his whole thing was like, well, I wanted you to be able to have a degree in a field that you can potentially fall back on in case the arts don't work out, because I know how difficult it is. I know it's not something where you just like, oh, you get a job one day and then khalas, that's it. You've made it. It's like, it's going to take years, if not decades, of really working your butt off, really, hustling until some door opens that inshallah you can make money to be able to live off of it. Not the rich, glamorous life, but enough to just sustainably live. And that advice always stuck with me. And I was like, okay, it made me rethink of how I thought about my parents and them crushing my dreams. But I'm like, okay, again, as you were saying earlier, the survival mode, that's all they ever think about. So for them, it's like, well, how can my kids survive in this industry that's set up to make a lot of people fail, and only let the 1%, strive and win. But it took a lot of self-work and a lot of just, reflection of, this is what I want to do, and I need to put my mind to it. And again, easier said than done. But once I did that, I came out with 3 master's degrees because it was the pandemic and I had nothing better to do and the industry was shut down. But it really allowed me to learn a lot more about myself as an artist and myself as a person, that actually helped a lot of my projects, I think, grow and excel way better than if I just was like, I'm just going to do it. But it's because of that passion and drive in my mind that I put in.
Yes. Sabine, were you going to say something?
I was going to add on to that about what you're saying, Jonathan, about not necessarily understanding our parents when we're young, when they're like, maybe arts is not the best thing, and you think that they're trying to crush your dreams, but they don't know any more than what they've been, they've grown up to see. Like, they want the stable career, they want stability for you. And so when you come in with, I want to pursue arts, it's not that they're trying to crush your dreams. It's to them, let's say they haven't seen anyone that's done it, that succeeded. So it's like, no, this should be a passion. And so that's why it's like, as we got older, I understood now in retrospect with my parents. I mean, now they love it, but in retrospect, it was like, I understand when your 19-year-old is sitting you down and saying, hey, I'm going to drop out of college and go downtown in sketchy venues and film concerts, that they would have a little bit of concern, but at that age, you're like, I want to do it. So I think just having the little more like empathy or awareness for that as adults now, that it's not always bad intention. They don't know until you prove it. And now they do.
So as a parent of a child who is pursuing the arts industry, I can share with any parent out there that a lot of it, we come from a fear-based culture of the unknown, and leaning into that for you to say, where are my fears in that? And taking a minute to say, and I say this to my daughter Satya all the time, I would rather have you try and fail than be 30, 35 years old wondering what if. And so I can do that for you as a parent, to say, I will support you. And she knows you have to grind. It is not easy to pursue this industry or to be an artist at all. Yet it's giving your child the opportunity. And I know we come from no first, then it's the wash and all this. Try not to fight your children on that. If you see that they have talent, and if you see that there's a passion and a drive, well, I know it's scary. And like Jonathan said, there is that, it's the 1%. Yet it's not even about making it or not making it. It's about the fulfillment of their path and allowing them to pursue their path. And how can you support it, and taking you and your fears and your judgments and hakiyat al-nas and all that, and saying, I'm going to stay present to my child in a way that's going to help them grow. And that means stepping aside now and guiding them gently and giving them the resources to be able to at least try. And that, to me, is the greatest gift you could give your child. And again, what you're giving them is presence. You're giving them a way in which I see it as like her soul's journey, to be able to say, well, here I am. I don't want to get in the way of that because of my fears and not knowing. I was a theater kid, if you guys didn't know that. I was a musical theater kid. I still love the theater. That's why I support the arts so much. And I also, my parents crushed my dreams. I should have been in New York, on some stage.
Broadway.
Broadway. Oh, you don't even know. I'm the karaoke queen now,
Love that.
And so I think part of that was you give your children what you never received. And it's not to knock my parents. Again, like Sabine and Jonathan said, your parents, they were surviving in this country, in the United States. However, I guess my point to that is there's always that what if, and you don't want to be that parent that your child is saying, why did they stop me from that? Now, of course, you make sense of your life path. We're all doing fine. We're all moving forward. We all make sense of what happened, but it's that what if that I'll encourage any parent, to minimize, that for your child, because then, they won't need someone like me to help them kind of wrap their minds around it.
And I mean, like for our parents too, I mean, we shot the film in Canada and I'm based in San Francisco, so my parents aren't there, but like Sabine's mom was so like helpful of like, okay, I'm going to do crafties and food. Like to see our parents who were like, no, all of a sudden be like, what can I do? What can I step in and just help out with, My dad even was like, okay, what can I do? Like, of course he's like, all I can do is throw money right now because I'm not physically there. But like, what can I do? Do you need me to be there? Sabine's dad was on set with us sometimes too, just to make sure everything was going smoothly, But it's like, not to say like, our parents were negative about it and always have been. It's like, no, they've learned and seen us grow into who we are. And at the end of the day, for them, like you were saying, Tiffany, they wanted to support us no matter what in the ways that they know that they can support us. And it was just beautiful to see that. Like, And
it was very full circle at the screenings when our parents were watching it to sort of see, I guess, these years of maybe we don't know, is this going to work? And then they're sitting there watching this film that is also screened at Pixar, like this big thing. And they're sitting there and like my mom cried. And my dad told me after, he's like, I wanted to cry, but like it was so many people, like he was very emotional over it. So it's kind of very full circle. Like your parents will hopefully, come around. Like it takes time and you got to really believe in yourself because it's a tough industry.
It is. And it's a lone journey, but I love that full circle moment. I couldn't imagine being your parent. I would have lost it I was losing it. And I'm not even your parent. I was like, this is amazing. So let's kind of move into, I know, at what point, because we've talked about generational trauma and responsibility and emotional suppression and this vulnerability. In the film, one of the greatest questions, at what cost is it of holding it in?
Mm-hmm.
This emotional suppression, not pursuing your dreams, not, taking on these roles. I mean, there's so many layers to the film around at what cost of always holding it in. Like, what are some of the things you guys have noticed in these things?
I mean, it can impact your health, that's for sure. When you're constantly suppressing, pushing it down, like I don't need to deal with this now. I don't need to think about this now, and especially if you grow up in an environment where conversations are sometimes brushed under the rug. We don't talk about this, this, not now, always not now. And so that can come out in, at least for me personally, in like panic attacks or just being very, like I used to be the type that was such a workaholic because I didn't want to think about things that I didn't want to deal with. And that was, based on people I saw around me that also had that mentality where it's like they go through something hard, even a death. And then it's like, okay, that happened. Let's keep going. And I'm like, did no one process this? Did we not just witness something very traumatizing? And so it leaks in different ways. And like in the film, the siblings, it leaks in arguments and dividing people. And it's really hard. It is hard to sit with what you're feeling and to actually say it and to process it. I think for me, because I've been in therapy for so many years, it was slow, but it helped me be able to do that. But still struggle with it till now, regardless. If that Yeah.
It makes total sense, because a lot of points, what I love seeing highlighted in the film around sibling role, siblings dynamics, and the gender roles, and the identity of, the eldest son, and, the youngest, and the middle child, and sort of how each person emotionally vomited all over each other, versus this communication that getting the skills and the tools to be able to talk about these things, I think, is at the crux of what your film is saying. Can we talk about it? But more often than not, in our within our cultural framing, is high pain tolerance is mistaken for strength.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, the more I can endure, and that's why I love your film, because it speaks to, and this is what I tell people, why إحنا العرب, why do we have to be so strong? And I'm tired of being resilient.
Mm-hmm.
To be quite frank, it's at what point can, in a sense, we fall apart to be taken care of and held? And how can we do that for ourselves? Because no one's going to do it for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what leads to that is all the, sibling dynamics that I love that it was highlighted in your film around. What do you think were some of the gender roles that you've noticed in?
I mean, in our film, we were pretty. I think that comment didn't sit. It sat well with some people and didn't sit well with others. It kind of varied. But I think when they say sometimes, like, you have multiple siblings, right? But each of you have different parents, because like they will each treat you, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think there were like gender expectations as a woman, and then I think when you don't talk about it, it's like, well, why can't I do this? Why does he get to do this? Why am I not able to? And then you sort of built up this resentment. Let's say, like in the film, like Noor builds up this resentment towards her brother Wissam. He doesn't know, but to her, she's like, but Mama and Baba didn't let me do, this. I always had to be the one to clean the mess, and you just get to go off. And so she builds this resentment. She kind of she just throws it out there. And I remember at the screening, it was interesting, like with one of the screenings that was more of the Western audience, when there was a line, I don't know, I'm forgetting the line that she says, Jonathan, but she says,
I know exactly what you're saying, where it's like, well, mom and dad give you more time because men need more time to grow up.
Oh yeah. It was like, men need more time to grow up, but we have to be the responsible ones. But
women have to be, yeah.
Yeah, and the Western audience, they really were like, wow, this is so relatable. When it played in front of the Arab, they laughed. They burst out laughing, all of them. Yeah. And I was sitting there like, is this a good thing that you're all laughing, or what's going on? And then they came after and they're like, we're so surprised that this is still being talked about, that that you're bringing this up. And I'm kind of blanking out a little bit now, but it was something I really thought was important to throw in, because again, it's often just expected of us, and no one ever necessarily says it. And if you say it, there's backlash to it. And so Noor kind of throws it there, and then Wissam takes offense. But all in all, it's like, I think, yeah.
It has been interesting too, from a Western perspective, to see like Western non-Arab audiences take in the film with regards to the Noor character, who's the middle child, for context for people on the live. Because a lot of, I think, Western people see our women back home in the Middle East, it's always, the women with the hijab, very modest, even in Saudi Arabia wearing the full-on stuff and whatnot. And people think, oh, women are just weaker because of that. Unfortunately, that is the stereotype the West sees. When in reality, it's like, no, Arab and MENA women hold on to so much strength and resilience within themselves that they have to bottle in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Sabine wrote beautifully and directed our actress Vanessa beautifully to show that, where she has always been the strong one. Whereas the boys are a bit like, meh, 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 she's always one that has to hold it together. And again, she's not the oldest, but allowing her in the end, in the climax of the film, she's the one that has the blow up almost, to just really let it out. Seeing a woman who has had to hold on to so much pain, so much grief, and at a tragic moment where she hears something from the news, just can't handle it anymore. And it's like, those are our women. They have to hold on to so much grief, so much trauma, so much this, and don't have necessarily a safe space to always be able to communicate with it, you know? And a lot of Western audiences are like, wow, we didn't realize that. And it's like, yeah, that's the truth because, you know, you guys stereotype us in a different way. But yeah, it's just kind of when you brought up the idea of like gender roles and stuff, that's always what I think of is the newer character in our film.
I love that. And so for anyone that's on the live, to take a look at your own life and your own sibling dynamics and to be able to say, what role do I carry? How much, I always say, write down all your resentments, at least acknowledge them, because we got to feel it to heal it. You need to name it to tame it. And that's what I love about the film El Etizal, is because that was also the first time that I was able to witness a woman's freedom to express her rage, her anger, her frustration, and I thought, oh, this is quite healthy. Right? I said, it's this expression of emotion. And how do we express it in a way that's going to be empowering? And that's what we're trying to shift. But by suppressing it, you're not helping yourself. That's where panic attacks come in, depression. The more you suppress, the more your body's going to say, I need you to heal this. And that's what I love about the film, is that it gives us an opportunity to take a look and say, which character am I?
Yeah.
And that was wonderful. I definitely related to her character for sure, which was so awesome. I was like, oh, I'm not the only one. It's
Tiffany, I don't know if you agree with this from like your perspective as a professional in this field. Is I was trying to show also it's okay to have breakdowns. It's okay to cry and to let it out, and we don't always have to be like, I'm the strong one, I don't show emotion, you know, like it's okay to do that. And especially in the film, and like you were saying, Jonathan Noor, like the woman having to be these sort of strong pillars. I think it applies also to the men, you know, it for sure applies, if not more. So, but being like, no, it's okay. It is normal to have these breakdowns, but because we all sort of hold it in, keep to ourselves, no one says it. And then if you do, it's like, well, you're over emotional, maybe you're sensitive, you're just going crazy. Versus like, no, this is very normal. And if we don't do this, like you said, it'll come out in different ways. So that was something also like, yes, it's intense and there's arguing and crying, but that it's healthy in a weird way. I don't know if you agree.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I mean, that part, I was like, yes, finally, you know, I'm a firm believer as a clinician to, we wear these masks, particularly as Arab, you know, right, of always looking good, put together, kul shay منيح, da da da. And yet, if anyone we have a very narrow emotional range. Can't be too happy, can't be too sad, can't be too, right? Anger may be the more acceptable emotion, but we have a very narrow emotional range. So my hope with the film, the platform, Community for Interest, that we're expanding this range to say all of it is okay. I mean, provided you're not, you know, punching your sibling or punching people or, you know, harming people, but it's okay to feel your feelings. I think a lot of my work within our communities is, can you be okay and accept these really intense feelings? Yet many people within our cultural context, yes, you were dramatic, you were sensitive, you were too much. And there wasn't any curiosity as to why there were these big feelings. And within our cultural context, there's thousands of reasons why we have big feelings. Yet there's no permission to talk about it. So when you see big feelings, it's like, oh, it's okay. We demystify it, that it's okay to have these feelings. So yes, I long story short, as a clinician, I'm a firm believer, you know, scream therapy, you know, I'm a firm believer in expression. That's why I love the arts, because you could take all of it and express it, all of it and express it in healthier ways than, you know, arguing with your, you know, families cutting each other off, or, you know, all the things that happen when we don't talk about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or give people permission to express their feelings and then ask, where does this come from? Are you okay?
Yeah.
How about that? Let's start with, are you okay? How can I support you? What can I do? But instead we shun them usually.
Yeah.
I know. So that's why we're going to change it. We're shifting the narrative, you guys. We're shifting it.
Yeah, and it'll take time. You know, it's a hard truth to face, especially when it's right in front of you, and it will take time. But we're determined through our, you know, our work and as yourself. That's why when I saw your TikTok and I was like, oh my God, someone's actually talking about mental health in our community. Like, what is going on? And right away, I wanted to connect because what you're doing is not only what we're trying to do, but it's like you're shifting this whole generation. You're providing a platform for everyone to finally be able to talk about it and to normalize therapy, normalize, you know, speaking about what we go through versus just being the strong ones. So, but yeah, I think it'll take time for the message to be, processed.
Yes, I appreciate and thank you for your words. And I appreciate you saying that, because for the younger generation, I know how important it is to heal and to talk about things and move forward. And it does take time. It's about giving your parents time to sit with things. Just like Jonathan and Sabine, you know, in their journeys, their parents, they just needed time to sit with everything. And many of our parents and grandparents have significant trauma histories, significant that you can't even remotely address, like think about, because they don't talk about it. You cannot force someone to open up about their trauma if they are not ready, because then what are you doing? You're re-traumatizing this individual. So it's about accepting that your parents' trauma, that is for them to hold in any way that's for them. And sometimes it's dysfunctional, yes. And how can you take accountability and responsibility for yourself to say, how do I want to move through this so that I could be better, not only for myself, those around me, but future generations. So that's why it's a blend. The platform, the community is always about honoring our parents, recognizing their journey is not an easy one, and also recognizing how we can heal and do better for ourselves. And they may never change. That's right. I think Jessica wrote, I don't believe parents can ever change. Well, parents can change. However, you have to be the change.
Yes.
You need to be the change. And at some point, the parents will modify themselves because they want you in their life. Does that make sense, you guys? Right?
Yeah.
You need to be the change you want to see. If you think you're going to wait for you to change based on their reaction, that's why there's so much suffering. Yeah.
Go.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm glad you brought that up, Tiffany, because like looking at my mom's perspective, my mom is half Syrian, and so when the Syrian civil war was going on, a lot of her khaltos and her cousins and khalha, you know, they all were going through that in Damascus and other parts, and kind of what our film talks about, where we had no connection with them for sometimes weeks, if not months at a time. And after my mom saw Al-Ittisal in theaters, she came up to me and she's like, I understand the Noor character, which was just a moment of progress for me to have her say that, because she's always bottled in so much emotion, bottled in a lot of her pain and grief. And she began to open up and talk to me about it. She's like, you know, I don't know, but it's like those 10 years of the Civil War and what I've had to deal with is I saw it in a 18-minute film in front of me. And now I understand when you say I'm feeling anxious. I understand when you talk about panic attack. I understand those feelings now a bit more. Has she like fully changed? Not necessarily, but it's at least an understanding that she has that was not there, you know, way before that. And I remember the year before, I took her to go see Inside Out 2, that Pixar film about the emotions, right? And we took my little, my nieces and my god sister, who was like 6 at the time. And anytime that anxiety character came up on the screen, oh, she was like screaming, like, I hate anxiety, I hate anxiety. You know, and my mom was like, haram, like having kids watch a movie about anxiety, and the word just kept telling that, you know, in front of them, anxiety, like khawifhum, like they're not gonna understand. And then after she saw Litisal, she would be like, I see why we need to introduce this terminology earlier, but at least even talk about these things, not necessarily to the extent of like having adult conversations to kids about anxiety, but just having the knowledge and terminology to be able to allow kids to express themselves. And I was like,
Yeah.
all of this from my movie mom? Okay, that's good. At least
I
something's
love it.
changed.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, this has been incredible. This conversation, as we wrap up, one thing I love about your film is it's about amplifying the voice around mental health. It's about creating the conversation. I know anyone who's on this live, you want to know where you can see this film, right? I mean, I know I will definitely want to see it again, at least 100 times. Can you guys speak to maybe where people will be able to see the film? Oh, follow you guys on all major platforms. So anybody that wants to know more about the film, Sabine and Jonathan's work, you guys, can you share a little bit about where people can find you?
Yeah, so we have an Instagram for our film, which will have updates on everything coming up. It's Alitisal the film on Instagram, and then my Instagram, which I should have written my full name, but I'll write it. It's Sabine Khawaji, Kahwhaji, and I'll also be posting updates there.
Hold on one second, Mira. Can you put in the chat for everyone the different Instagrams and all the social media handles, if you don't mind doing that on the back end?
Sure, I'm doing that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Amazing.
Yes. And then you guys, yes. So please follow them, learn more about the direction. And so wait, did we hear about what was happening with the film?
Well, so my Instagram handles are at the J Akawi Arab. That's my personal one. And then my production company, which produced Alitisal, is at Bougie Arabs Entertainment, which you can, as Sabine was saying, you know, keep up with updates on where the film is going to be streaming. But we're excited to announce that we are working with a film distribution company. And we can't necessarily on this live fully announce the specific streaming websites we'll be on. But if you follow us at these pages, you'll get to know immediately where you'll be able to stream Alitisal, which should happen by the end of the year, inshallah.
Yeah, we'll have platforms soon. So it's no longer in festivals. Like you'll be able to watch it from home wherever. It should be great.
So exciting. So be on the lookout for that. And we also will be posting updates on the film. So look out for that on Community for International Arab as well. We're going to support this. Sabine, Jonathan, thank you so much for your work, for your energy, for all that you do in really bringing up this conversation. I wish you both the absolute best in all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so for those, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And support Alitisal. You guys, this is where we're going. Have a good one.
Thank you.